Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. So what I have here today is a seahorse, and I'm going to be using some new supplies that I just got and I've never used before. So I splurged. Actually, I got this Meeden watercolor paper. I wanted to join the crowd. It seems like everybody has one now, so I thought I wanted to try that today. And then I also got this watercolor ink. It was like on clearance at Michael's, and I've never used watercolor ink, so I'm trying that today. And the colors that I'm using for this painting are permanent magenta, Smalt, Dumont's blue, and then that Vermillion, that watercolor ink. I will be using a straw and also some salt. And then later on I do throw in a white gel pen, a white acrylic pen, and a black gel pen for details. So I'm starting the Seahorse wet on wet, and I was just going to say that I really did enjoy using this watercolor ink, and I did like the paper too, especially just like for practice and stuff. I still love my Fabriano arches, but I did like this Meeden paper. So I'm doing wet on wet with the Seahorse, and I didn't sketch the Seahorse in or anything. You know, this is kind of just a fun painting. I wasn't uh, trying to create something super realistic. So I've done these seahorses before, and I usually just do it this way. Um, it's fun for me this way, but of course you could sketch in your seahorse if you wanted to. So it's just a basic seahorse shape. Wetting it down pretty good with clean water. And this is just a fun painting to do. I've done these in different colors. But this one, I wanted to try this Vermillion, this watercolor ink. So these are why I chose these colors. But so I came in with a wash of the Vermillion. As you can see on the right, the little container that I have it in, that little dish, it was a very vibrant color. So I started out with just a light wash of it first, and then I dropped in some of the ink without diluting it with water. And I really liked it. It was really fun to use. Um, and then I came down in the bottom here with a mixture of the permanent magenta and the Dumont's blue. And then I added some just permanent magenta by itself. With this seahorse, I did a mixture of a lot of all three colors. Some of the colors I just added themselves without mixing any of the other colors together. So you'll see I kind of just did a variety of different, um, you know, different combinations of these colors. Try not to create too much of muddiness. So after dropping in my color and seeing how I liked it, I did add some drops of water. Now, if you don't have a Dumont's Blue, which is by Winsor Newton, I think you could easily use a cobalt blue or an ultramarine blue, would work well. So this type of painting, you know, is very casual, fun. Um, I've done different variations of this painting, like I said, with different colors, different like details, because later on I do add details with with my pens. So just have fun with it. So here I'm just dabbing off some of the paint to create, and some of the water in the paint to create those spots there you see. So now here comes actually the most fun part, is where I'm going to be using my straw, and I'm going to be blowing the paint around to create what's called, I think it's called a cornet on a seahorse. It's kind of like their crown. But this crown that I'm making, I mean, it goes all the way down the seahorse. It's, of course, it's a not a realistic crown, but you know, it's fun to do. So anyway, so what I did is I created a nice mixture of the blue and the magenta, as you can see there, and then just dab it on the edge of the seahorse there and just blow. Now when I'm doing this, I'm using different mixture. Sometimes I'm using the mixture of the blue and the magenta, and then here I'm just adding the pure magenta. Then I'll add just like the vermilion. So I just kind of change my colors up as I go down the back of the seahorse to do this. And this is, you know, pretty easy to do, but if you haven't done this technique before, I would suggest just doing it on some scrap pieces of paper first before you actually do it on your painting. Um, because, you know, it just so you can figure out what kind of look you like, what you're going for, because, you know, if you do it too watery, then it might spread out too much. If you don't add enough water to it, then it might not actually spread out enough. And if you want a more intense color, you know, you add less water and so on and so forth. So I would just practice before doing this. As you can see, I left a little spot there on the back for the dorsal fin that I'm going to add later. Of course, this is sped up. This painting took me, oh gosh, I'm thinking about a couple hours, maybe an hour and a half to paint. I also got a new brush right there that I wanted to try out too. It's one of those calligraphy brushes. I got a pack of different sizes, and I really liked that calligraphy brush too. It had a nice fine point. I've never used a calligraphy brush, so I'm using like 3 different things I've never used before. So then after I do that, if it dries a little bit, that's fine. It can be wet still too. I take a clean brush and clean water, and I just work my way around along the cornet, if you want to call it. Just and dab some clean water just to kind of make it spread around and mingle and mix together. Of course, actually, I thought it would look pretty cool without doing this. You could leave it the way it was without, you know, doing this technique here. But I also like the way this looks, and I love watching the colors spread around and stuff. So then I added some salt to that area that I just added water to. But I did notice with this watercolor ink, for some reason it just didn't look like the salt did anything to the paint there. I don't know if it could have been the ink, it could have been the paper. I'm doubting it's the paper because I've never used this type of paper before. But anyway, so yeah, it didn't create that much effects, the salt, and for this painting. So then I'm just kind of going around. Oh, there. That's what I was doing. Sorry. I was adding the dorsal fin. Kind of just taking my brush, just spreading some water there, and kind of added the fin there. And then I'm just kind of darkening up some areas. I have a mixture of my magenta and blue, and just kind of creating some contrast there. And then later on, I do also, you know, mix the vermilion in there too with the blue. And I know that creates kind of like a brown because they are kind of like opposites on the color wheel. But, you know, it created a really pretty brown, and I did use those, and I'll actually mix of all 3 of those colors too together to accentuate some of the darker areas that I wanted to make it to add to the Seahorse. So there, see, I added some of the vermilion to that mixture there. And it did create kind of like a, I guess you could call it a muddy color, kind of like a brownish. To me, it looks like more like a burnt orange. I really liked it. So I used that to add darker value to the Seahorse. So I'm just mixing all the different colors together to create, you know, what I think looks good. Like I've said, I've done this Seahorse in other colors before. And you can just choose some colors that, you know, look nice to you, that blend well together, and have fun with it. This Vermillion was quite an interesting color to me. I have Vermillion in a core. That's the only other Vermillion color I have in a core watercolor. And it's quite different than this one. The core watercolor, the core Vermillion's has more of a redness to it. This to me was like a deep orange with some red, but it was more orangey than the other Vermillion that I have. But I really liked it. I'm thinking about getting some more watercolor inks and trying some other ones out. So here I'm just adding more color, layers of color, lining the Seahorse. So the head was dry, so I wanted to sketch in the eye. So just basic oval shape for the eye. And then I'm just adding more detail, darkening around the nose and creating some interest, little marks here and there with a mixture of all three of those colors. So I thought I better do the eye. This brush here came with a set, I think, of like 5 other sizes, and I got the Meeden and the brush during the Amazon, was it our Prime Day sale or they had last week. Got it for a really good price. I thought I'd try it, and I did enjoy using it also. So here I am just adding a mixture of the vermilion with the blue and some of the magenta in there too, and just adding some short little brush strokes to the back there. And I'm accentuating the dorsal fin. You know, this type of painting, I mean, it's gives you such free range to do what you want. You know, add any type of details. You can do so many different variations of this the Seahorse. So then I whipped out my gel pen. There's my gel pen, and I'm adding some details to the back here. You know, I have to say I am having an issue with finding a gel pen I like. This gel pen here, it works pretty well, but I'd like to find a finer tip gel pen. I believe this was, gosh, was this a Pentel gel pen? If anybody has any suggestions for gel pens out there, like a finer tip gel pen, I have the Jelly Roll gel pen, and and that Pentel, and I don't know. I'm just, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So here I'm adding some dots, and this is my Sharpie that I got. This is actually something new too, actually. It's a Sharpie acrylic pen, it's a marker, but I think it's an acrylic pen, and it worked pretty well. I think the Posca pens seem to be more white, more opaque, but the Sharpie worked nicely. But sometimes my Posca, I have to press it down a lot, this and that. But this Sharpie, you don't have to do that with. It is kind of a thicker nub. This one I got, it came in a packet. I think it had like red, green, blue, black. And then what I really wanted was the white. So yeah, I did like this Sharpie. Now I'm adding some pretty thick dots, as you see, to accentuate the Seahorse. And I've done different designs on the Seahorse, instead of just this design. This, I just kind of was winging it as I go. I didn't really have any plans of how I was going to do it. And then here I'm using my little jelly roll and adding smaller dots, which is it was kind of hard to see on this video, but I really like using the smaller dots. But and I have done a Seahorse where all I did was use small dots, and that looked really cool, but it's very time consuming. So for the purpose of for the video and for my own self, I was being lazy. I didn't feel like spending an hour making dots, so that's why I used the bigger dots. And then here I'm using a extra fine point black gel pen and creating all these little black dots too. I'm creating a design on there with the black dots, and it's hard to see on this video, unfortunately, too. So I'm just adding detail. Then I'm, kind of accentuating the eye more. And I did add with the white Sharpie the little pictorial fin behind the eye. You can kind of see it when my hand moves out of the way. Since this video was sped up, it didn't. There I am. So I added it with the white acrylic pen, and then I'm painting over it with some watercolor just to change the color, but I didn't want it white. So then I took a piece of those cleaning sponges that you can buy. I ripped a little piece of it off, and I wet it, and I'm just kind of just brushing the tips of those little pieces of paint that I blew out there, just creating kind of like a soft effect. I thought that looked kind of cool. If you don't have one of those little cleaning sponges, magic sponge or something, I forget what it's called, you could use a damp paper towel. Would work well too. So then after I kind of created that effect, wiped those out like that, I came back with my Sharpie, added more dots here and there, and that was about it. I think I called it done after that. I hope you guys like it. I think it turned out pretty cool. I really like the colors. But thanks so much for watching, and thanks so much for giving me your time. And please like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you shortly with the next one. Bye-bye.